Can Iran overcome the damage caused by America and Israel and still emerge victorious? The question may seem contradictory, but it becomes logical when we talk about Iran in a major war scenario like the one ongoing with the United States and Israel. Despite Iran facing massive strikes, we have seen nuclear reactors being bombed, and military installations are being destroyed, and missile platforms that disable the Air Force and Navy are taking heavy hits. Still, many indicators suggest that the regime in Tehran is far from collapsing. The emergence of a new pro-Washington authority has become a dream of the Trump era. At least, that's what Tehran says. Because the main political goal for which the war was fought does not appear to have been achieved. Even according to a U.S. intelligence report, the Tehran regime remains strong and is unlikely to fall anytime soon. Here lies the paradox. Iran did not achieve military victory, yet it was not politically defeated.
You know, you never like to say too early you won. We won the bet. In the first hour, it was over.
In the midst of this moment, the new leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, emerges with a different message. He does not mention the end of the battle, nor does he hint at negotiation or truce. It speaks of the war shifting to new battles on different fronts. Yes, he threatens to open new fronts in areas where Mojtaba believes Washington and Tel Aviv have limited experience. He talks about the movement of the Houthis, Hezbollah, Iraqi factions, and even the remaining followers in Syria together. The message is clear. Do you both want to continue your great war, Trump and Netanyahu? If you come and endure my minor battles that are about to begin. At the same time, Tehran also uses another weapon more impactful on the world than missiles: energy. Indeed, the Strait of Hormuz has become an open card of leverage. Mujtaba came out to say openly and clearly that the closure would continue, or that the threat of its closure will remain in place. The results appear immediately in the markets. Oil prices are rising, maritime insurance costs are soaring, and the global economy is entering a state of tension. In the background, two major powers stand firm against the fall of Iran: Russia and China. Moscow views rising oil prices as a strategic gain, as it can sell its oil at higher prices and without discounts. Beijing views the collapse of the Iranian regime under American strikes. It means reshaping the entire Middle East under Washington's influence. As a result, the world has increasingly heard of diplomatic mediations and undisclosed messages. Initiatives led by Moscow, Paris, and Beijing, possibly each acting independently. These movements emerged following a call between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump. So it seems that Trump, like the rest of the world, is looking for a way out of the war, before it turns into a global energy crisis or an open regional confrontation. But Trump wants it directed to end with, "I won."
And we've won. Let me tell you, we've won.
Meanwhile, Iran will say on the other side, "I have won." But before understanding the meaning of the Iranian victory, we must return to the starting point. What were the original goals of the war? The American and Israeli objectives were clear from the very beginning: overthrowing the Iranian regime, dismantling the nuclear program, eliminating ballistic missile capabilities, and ending Tehran's ability to threaten Israel or influence the region through military force. In some scenarios, the goal was even further reaching, not just changing the regime in Tehran, but opening the way for a new authority, less hostile to the West and possibly an ally of America, offering it oil on a silver platter. And part of these goals has already been achieved. Nuclear facilities were subjected to severe strikes. Many rocket launchers were destroyed. The air defenses, along with the Air Force and Navy, will emerge from the war significantly weakened. But the larger political goal was not achieved. It's true that Khamenei the father was killed, but then Khamenei the son came. This means the regime remained in place, and the state institutions did not collapse. The alternative that some circles in Washington hoped for did not emerge. And here, Tehran begins to construct its own narrative. For the Iranian regime, simply surviving a war against both the United States and Israel can be portrayed as a victory. The internal narrative will state that Iran faced the two strongest military powers in the region and the world. Military facilities and structures were destroyed, but she did not give up, did not collapse, and did not sign a political surrender. This narrative will become the foundation of a new legitimacy. Mojtaba Khamenei will be presented as the man who led the regime at a moment that seemed fatal. Now, let's ask another question. Why does Washington accept ending the war before achieving all its objectives? The answer is more connected to politics and economics than to the battlefield, because the United States spent $11.3 billion on the war in just 7 days. Can you imagine the number? The first weekend alone consumed nearly $5 billion worth of ammunition. All these numbers shocked members of Congress during a briefing with a clear message: this is a war that burns money just as it burns fuel, especially with clear indications of requests for additional war funding, at a time when the U.S. economy began to feel the pressure of rising energy prices, because gasoline prices are rising within the United States and markets are becoming unsettled. And for an American president like Donald Trump, this is not just an economic file but a direct political threat. Rising fuel prices could become a domestic crisis, especially if the war drags on. Washington also understands that overthrowing the Iranian regime by force could require a far more dangerous phase, either a ground invasion or a complete state collapse, and this scenario carries enormous risks. From a civil war inside Iran to regional chaos that could last for years. Therefore, stopping the war before slipping into this phase becomes a strategic choice. At this point, it is necessary to discuss the roles of Russia and China in some detail. Tehran's two allies do not want a complete victory for Iran, but they certainly do not want its total defeat. Moscow views the draining of the United States as a strategic gain. Rising oil prices also give the Russian economy a significant boost. For this reason, Russia provides military expertise to Iran, especially in the field of drones and the tactics developed during the war in Ukraine. It also provides intelligence that enables Tehran's missiles to hit their targets. China's interests are slightly different. Yes, Beijing does not want a direct confrontation with Washington in the Middle East, but it also does not want to see an important ally like Iran collapse under American strikes. It is also severely affected by the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, which supplies it with oil. Therefore, it does not limit itself to providing indirect economic and technical support. American reports even state that satellites Beijing has been observed sending ships loaded with parts and components for ballistic missiles to Iran. But what does all of this mean for Israel? If the war ends without the fall of the Iranian regime, that will leave a significant psychological impact, because Trump and Netanyahu will be able to claim they destroyed a significant portion of Iran's military capabilities. But their opponents in Iran will say that the bigger goal has not been achieved. And at that time, for the first time, an impression might emerge in the region that Israel, even with full American support, it was unable to secure the victory it claimed to want. This opens a broader debate within Washington itself about the limits of Israeli power and its role in the American strategy in the Middle East. As for the Arabs and the region, Iran's resilience does not necessarily mean acceptance or trust in it. On the contrary, if the war involved strikes or attacks targeting Arab countries, this will leave deep wounds in the political memory of the region. The Arab-Iranian dispute could escalate to a higher level of tension. At the same time, Iran emerging from the war will be much weaker militarily than before, and less ability to impose traditional dominance. But it may lean more towards indirect methods, supporting agents, political pressure, and managing regional crises instead of controlling them. In the end, several scenarios remain for how the war might conclude. The Iranian regime could collapse under internal or military pressure. He may be forced to change his behavior and accept harsh conditions, or each side may declare its own victory without any real resolution. There is a more serious possibility of state collapse, leading Iran into chaos similar to what happened in Syria. Pressure can also continue through an economic blockade and control over oil exports. Finally, it can be said that if the war stops, Iran may not be victorious in the traditional military sense, but at least it can claim to have prevented its opponents from winning, even if it is more politically isolated and more hostile within its Arab surroundings.